The moment that should have protected one name just exposed everyone else. And not quietly, no, this exploded inside a courtroom where numbers don't lie, promises don't bend, and silence suddenly feels like strategy. Because while one headline screamed protection, another number 18.3 million sat there like a ticking clock nobody wanted to acknowledge. And here's the twist no one is saying out loud: the promise didn't remove the burden. It redirected it, intensified it, concentrated it. And now every path leads back to one question that keeps getting louder the more people try to ignore it: who actually pays when the shield only covers one person? 2 days earlier, inside the Royal Courts of Justice, a promise made on July 7th wasn't just remembered, it was tested publicly, coldly, against real numbers, and it held. That part is undeniable. Baroness Lawrence walks away untouched, protected, confirmed, clean, but the courtroom didn't stop there. It didn't celebrate. It didn't pause. It kept moving, and that's where everything started to unravel, because the bill didn't disappear, it simply shifted, like water finding the lowest point, like pressure redistributing inside a sealed system. And suddenly, the arithmetic became impossible to ignore. Insurance, $16.2 million. Costs, $34.5 million. Gap, at least $18.3 million. Not theoretical, not speculative. Documented, so the question changed instantly. Not who is protected, but who was left. And the answer came fast. 6 names: Elton John, David Furnish, Sadie Frost, Elizabeth Hurley, Simon Hughes, Prince Harry. 6, but here's where the silence gets strange. Because 6 names doesn't mean 6 equal burdens. It never does. And everyone inside that courtroom knew it.
Daily Mail could get millions in damages. Can Harry afford it? Will he have to sell the mansion?
Now, publishers of the Daily Mail argue that the claimant Harry and his team and their legal team handled the case in such an exceptionally improper manner that the court should require them to pay costs on an indemnity basis.
Why does protecting one person increase the pressure on everyone else? Because cost law doesn't care about intention. It cares about distribution. And distribution always finds a target. The hearing opened on July 29th at 10:30. Same judge, same courtroom, but a completely different battlefield. Not guilt, not allegations, just money. Cold, structured, unavoidable money. Anthony White KC pushed hard indemnity costs. A harsher route. One where Associated Newspapers doesn't have to justify proportion, only reason. That matters, because that shifts weight. Heavier, sharper, directly onto the losing side. Nicholas Bacon KC resisted standard basis. Softer, controlled, contained, but no decision was made. Not yet. And that's where the tension lives. Because without that decision, nobody knows how big the hit actually is. And yet the deadline is already locked in. That's not normal. That's pressure. Insurance capped at $16.2 million. Cost already at $34.5 million. A shortfall staring everyone in the face. And then the interim demand $9,950,624.37. Precise, almost surgical. Counter offer just above $7.9 million. And right there, in that gap between numbers, the real story begins. Because when Baroness Lawrence is confirmed protected, the system doesn't shrink the bill. It redistributes it. 7 becomes 6, and the weight gets heavier.
Ooh. And where does he go from here? This is an existential crisis for Harry. And I thought his reaction afterwards with the angry response to the verdict, which strangely Doreen Lawrence was a co-signatory of, but if you read the text, and if you read lines like total whitewash, that doesn't sound like Doreen Lawrence to me. Sounds like Harry. So I think what's happened, guys, is that he sued in anger. You should never sue someone when you're angry. You got to have cool heads, calm, rational arguments, and it's always a risk. Instead, he's gone in like a bull in the china shop.
Now here's the part almost no one is fully processing. There is a deadline, August 28th, fixed, confirmed, public, but there is no final number. Think about that. A bill is due without knowing what the bill is. That's not just unusual. That's strategic tension built into the process itself. Judge Nicklin didn't announce the figure. He reserved judgment, meaning the real number, the real damage arrives later, in writing, quietly after the pressure has already started building. They are going to be paying a sum of money, but what sum? No answer, not yet.
The bottom line is that reputationally it's been a disaster. Financially, it's Armageddon. I mean, what is Harry on the hook for? Let's get down to brass tacks. $10, $15, $20 million. is what Harry is facing.
And this is where assumptions start collapsing, because people instinctively divide numbers evenly. 7 names, split the cost. Manageable, but that's not how this works. Costs don't divide by head count, they divide by involvement, conduct, capacity, and one person is already out, which means redistribution starts before calculation even begins. Now add something else: language, not numbers. Words, 3 words to be exact. A banquet of litigation. That wasn't commentary, that was courtroom language. Direct, recorded, framed in front of the judge, deciding financial consequences. A banquet, not a case, not a claim. A spread, wide, expansive, strategic, and suddenly the narrative shifts again. Because now the argument isn't just that the case failed, it's that it was built to be big, designed to reach far, to cast wide, to catch something, anything. And if that framing sticks, the consequences aren't just financial, they become punitive. Now step back. Look at the 6 remaining names. Silence from some, measured disappointment from one, financial distance from another, and then one name that keeps resurfacing, not because it's the only one involved, but because it's the one carrying the most visible pressure. Prince Harry, not just part of the group, but the one who made the pledge, the one whose finances are already under scrutiny, the one whose statements are now being cited in court. That matters, because stories don't spread evenly, they concentrate, just like the money. And every headline from this moment forward starts to narrow. What does Harry owe? And no one has the answer yet. Then comes the twist no one expected. The winning side overspent by more than $18.6 million. Pause on that. The side that won exceeded its own court-approved budget by a figure larger than most entire trials. That detail cuts both ways. It challenges the demand, but it doesn't erase the gap, because insurance doesn't move. The ceiling stays. Fixed, cold, final, which means even if costs are reduced, the shortfall survives. And the claimant's own barrister admitted it, not hypothetically, in writing. Many millions, not a guess, a warning. So here's where everything stands. Judgment reserved, basis undecided, deadline confirmed, number unknown, gap undeniable, 1 name protected, 6 names exposed. And among those 6, 1 name carrying the story, the scrutiny, and the unanswered question all at once, because a promise was made. And then the timeline tightens, almost like the entire situation starts closing in from every direction at once. Because the sequence of events doesn't just explain what happened, it exposes how everything was set in motion long before anyone realized where it would end. January 2022, Prince Harry personally reaches out to Baroness Lawrence, bringing her into the case, not passively, not incidentally, but directly, intentionally. Which means from the very beginning, this wasn't just a legal action, it was a constructed alliance, a deliberate gathering of names, influence, and credibility. October 6, 2022, the lawsuit is formally filed against Associated Newspapers. 7 claimants stepping forward together. A united front that looked powerful at the time, almost unshakable, until the numbers began to surface and the structure behind that unity started to show cracks. By 2024, the court had already signaled something wasn't right. The combined proposed spending $38.8 million was ruled manifestly excessive, a phrase that would come back later with almost eerie precision, like a warning that had been ignored. The court capped the claimants at 4, $1 million, and Associated Newspapers at approximately $4.5 million, drawing a line, setting limits, trying to contain what was already expanding beyond control. But then 2026 arrives, the trial begins in January, 11 weeks of arguments, evidence, pressure building day after day, until July 7th lands like a shockwave, every single one of the 97 allegations dismissed in a 436-page ruling. Not partially, not selectively, completely. And right there, in the immediate aftermath, Prince Harry makes the pledge that changes everything, publicly committing to shield Baroness Lawrence from any financial liability. A statement that at the time felt decisive, protective, even final. But it wasn't final. It was the beginning of the next phase. July 29th, the hearing opens again, and this time, it's not about allegations, it's about consequences. Associated Newspapers demands an interim payment of $9,950,624.37. The claimants push back with just above $7.9 million. And suddenly the courtroom isn't debating what happened, it's calculating what it costs. Insurance is confirmed at $16.2 million, but Associated Newspapers' costs stand at $34.5 million. And that gap, $18.3 million, doesn't disappear no matter how many arguments are made. Nicholas Bacon KC points out that Associated Newspapers exceeded its own approved budget by more than $18.6 million, calling the demand manifestly excessive. Using the court's own language against the winning side, a reversal that feels almost strategic, almost like an attempt to rebalance something that has already tilted too far. Anthony White KC pushes back harder, arguing for indemnity costs, describing the case as a banquet of litigation, framing it not as an isolated claim, but as the first move in something much larger, something planned, something expansive. And then the detail that shifts everything again, the confirmation that Baroness Lawrence will not pay. The protection is real. The pledge worked, but the mechanism behind that protection becomes the real story, because it doesn't erase the financial reality, it redistributes it. 6 names remain, and the structure of the burden changes instantly. July 30th, the hearing concludes, but instead of clarity, it leaves something far more unsettling: uncertainty locked against a fixed deadline. Judge Nicklin reserves judgment, no final number announced, no decision on whether costs will be standard or indemnity, only one thing confirmed from the bench: the payment is due by August 28th, a global sum, one lump figure divided among the claimants. A deadline without a number, an obligation without a calculation, a situation where the pressure starts before the scale of it is even known. And then the focus narrows almost inevitably, because among the remaining names, the dynamics are uneven. Simon Hughes expresses disappointment but no financial stance. Elizabeth Hurley remains silent. Sadie Frost offers nothing publicly. David Furnish is financially tied to Sir Elton John, and Sir Elton John himself, despite being the deepest documented pocket, is reported to have declined further funding when approached, even leaving his name off the post-verdict statement. That leaves Prince Harry, already under scrutiny, already associated with a $3 million annual burn rate, already facing questions about income streams that have reportedly diminished across Netflix and Spotify, standing at the center of a situation where visibility amplifies pressure. Because this is no longer just about numbers, it's about concentration. The bill is shared, but the attention isn't. The obligation is distributed, but the narrative isn't. And every element from the original outreach in January 2022 to the final confirmed deadline of August 28th feeds into that single unresolved tension. The promise protected one person. The numbers exposed everyone else. The judgment is still pending, the basis still undecided, the final figure still unknown, but the structure is already clear enough to ask the question that no one has answered with evidence, only speculation: what confirmed commitment exists anywhere from any of the remaining names to absorb the portion that didn't disappear when Baroness Lawrence was removed from the equation. Because until that answer exists in something concrete, something documented, something undeniable, the story doesn't close, it tightens.